Got ourselves a new arrival here for our little pet project. Been kind of looking forward to this one. Well, been looking forward to all of them. Wow. What do you want? You want to screw up my shot, don't you? Come in here with your cute self. Now you leaving? What we have here is an SH-8025 Technics 7-band Graphic Equalizer. My original equalizer I bought in 1983 was exactly one of these. The only difference is mine had an aluminum face. And the reason I know that is because it's sitting right over there. And there it is. I had a friend of mine bought a rack stereo system. Whole thing was Technics everything. Turntable, receiver, the whole 9 yards. And decided to sell some pieces off. And I bought this one in 1983. And I've had it on every main system that I've ever had since. I mean, I know I paid under $50 for it. I'm thinking $35 for some reason. I've had it for about 38 years now. I think I've got my money's worth out of it. And realistically, it's got such great sound. Now, back to the other one. That's the way you pack something. And sadly enough, I don't know if the piece of equipment deserved that kind of packing. I knew it was a little rough on the outside when I looked at it on eBay, so I'm not surprised at all. A little concerning, something's rattling around inside, but maybe hopefully that's a little trash or something. We'll find out. It is made in Japan, which that's where all the good Technique stuff was made at back in the day. It's definitely old enough. Not really sure what the plugs are on the back, but it's the same piece. Once again, a nice little dent on top there for all that packing too. The face looks really good. I mean, really good compared to the rest of it. I mean, there's almost nothing to be concerned about. Just a little bit on the top edge here. But just got some beat and some scratches, but hopefully a lot of this will clean up. I don't know. Some of it may not. Of course, we're going to take it apart, find out what's rattling around inside, de-oxit all the slides and all the switches, because it's dirty and I can see dust all down in there already. Alright, audiophiles, you're looking at the reason why I went to the dark side. This little Techniques right here, wow, it changed my whole world, and I really do mean that. When I found that you could just clean up something you want all by yourself, I was just amazed. I went ahead and I plugged up our newly acquired equalizer, and actually I'm using some patch cables left over from a video game, and they're a little bit shady. I know everybody's going to say right away that, oh well, you got everything all jacked up, that's why it sounds so good, and it's not necessarily that. Everything is so dirty that this is the only places that I can actually get them to stay on. Ah, darn it, I think part of a channel dropped out again. And every time I tried to move them all down, I'd have to spend another 5 minutes moving them all, touching them this way, touching them this way. And it's all just because they're filthy. I mean, that's just bottom line is there. So I'm going to have to clean up all that. Yeah, like I said, I knew everything was set high. If I liked the setting, I would pull everything down equally until where I could get the volume knob up to about, I don't know, 3/4, a little more than any more than 3/4 I'm not really worried about. And without any clipping, and that's kind of like where I would leave it. So I'm not necessarily big into adding a whole lot. Like I said, I'm tend to just pull everything back and then kind of add what's necessary. There is some other things wrong with the case, and like I said, there's something rattling around in there, and if it rattles in the right place, it does something weird. I have some new RCAs on order. Nothing special, just run-of-the-mill, what you would have probably got out of a Radio Shack or anything else at that time. Along with everything else, I want to make sure it's just kind of like run-of-the-mill where I was back then, so it's nothing, you know, you can't say, oh, the interconnects were so much better and you did this and you did that. No, I really want to see exactly where it is. Alright, now I got to do some work. Okay, first thing is we got to keep note that it doesn't have any feet on it. And we noticed that when we were over there test driving it on the receiver. We actually had to put a couple books down so it wouldn't scratch it. So we're going to have to get some rubber feet. Two of them seem to be stuck over here. We'll see how that works out. But mainly, we need to get this thing taken apart and find out what's rattling around inside. And let's get rid of these old video game connects, which are no good. We went ahead and got a lot of it taken apart. Really not sure what's going on in here. They have it wired up for 1/4-inch jacks. I'm thinking maybe it was used as for a musician or something. I mean, seems a little wild. Wasn't too big on the way they bent some of these caps down to actually make it work. I don't know why they actually even did it, but it's no big deal to take care of real quick. I mean, it's pretty clean inside. Don't really see much to really worry about. I went ahead and I took the slider board off. Just took it all the way off because that way I can actually just saturate. Oh god, I can see all kinds of dust and stuff in there. But I can just saturate them and dump them out. That way I don't have to worry about trying to get around the faceplate and around this and around that, because you really only see this part of it. This part over here is actually where you need to be. I found our little plastic piece that was floating around inside. Not sure what was going on. I guess the faders were just going in and out as I was jiggling it around, so that would make sense. Now, something that doesn't make sense at all is the top cover. As you can see, it has a whole lot of corrosion going on. Like something completely melted down over top of something else. Or maybe just too many beers sitting on top of it, I don't know. And last but not least, the top's a bit tore up. So we'll see what we can do about that. But mainly I need to go and squirt these guys down. I need to squirt this whole thing inside down. And then do a little blowing out, get rid of all the crap. Then clean the slides and put it all back together. Alright, we have our equalizer out at the garage. I'm going to take a little contact cleaner and spray some stuff down and use my brush here to kind of wiggle some stuff in. It's really not a whole lot going on here, and I'm not moving this board. I mean, it's been, you know, attached to these things now, and I'm not going to even play with it. There's no reason to take it out. I very well doubt anything's underneath it, because the inside looks really good. Just as I said, the top looks a little weird. I don't understand what's going on with that. Okay, with that done, back downstairs we go. We went a little farther than we thought we were going to on taking it apart. Something got spilt inside of it. When we went to take off the little knobs there for the sliders, a couple of them actually required a pair of pliers to come off on one side of the board here. So we knew there was something inside and took a look in there, and it was really cruddy. So we got out our D5 here and We really saturated it up. After leaving it in there and then swishing it around a bit, we're going to take it out to the garage and blow it out. That way we can actually use the F5 fader lube on it, and that will actually stay on there, so the silicone will actually stay on the sliders. We also went ahead and did our switches over here on the actual body of the equalizer, including the power switch over here, and our input-output connections on the back. Of course, we want everything to have nice clean contacts. And now we're going to go, as I said, take this up to the garage, blow it out, and we're going to take that to the sink and scrub them off. I really didn't have any plans for the lid, but the more I look at it, the more I want to do something while it's apart. It has some scratches, some very deep scratches, and everything's kind of bent and cattywamped here. So I think I'm going to give it a makeover with my brand new hammer. Alright, couldn't leave well enough alone, so I went ahead and I sanded it down with some 220 and then some 400 just to get the majority of scratches and digs out of it. And from there I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paint it up with a little flat black paint, not primer, flat black paint. And then a little clear matte. That way it doesn't have that super shine that, you know, kind of looks fake and plasticky. Talk about a can of worms. We had this thing looking really good. I mean, about 90–95%. And we were pretty happy with it. Went ahead and put 3 coats clear matte on it, and on the 3rd coat is the end of the can, and it spit out 2 giant blobs of clear coat. And I'm thinking, no big deal, I'll wet sand it off tomorrow. So the next day comes and I wet sand it off, and of course it melted all the way into the clear coat. So no matter what I did, there was just always these 2 big rings. Now I've gone ahead and re-wet sanded everything down, which is making a really nice surface to actually paint now. I mean, all the scratches are gone, everything, because, you know, there's so many layers on it and everything's been wet sanded down nice and smooth again. So that's a plus. But we are talking about an equalizer that probably, again, will not be seen. And it needs to be painted again and clear coated, and then probably some 2000 grit to kind of bring it down. I'm treating it like a body panel because, I mean, it is a tin. It did also cut me pretty good right there too. But I'm going to go ahead and repaint, re-clear coat, re-wet sand tomorrow. Had a bad paint reaction this time, so I stripped the whole thing and we're starting over. Well, I guess the 4th time is the charm on this guy. Just got done wet sanding, and then I polished and I waxed it like I would a car fender, as I said before. Didn't turn out too bad. Looks a hell of a lot better than it did. With that out of the way, I went ahead and I F5 fader lubed all my faders after I used the D5 to clean them. And what I did is I used the D5 and then I blew them out with a compressor, and then I let them sit for, I don't know, 12–14 hours, probably even 24. That way I could spray it in, move them all around, let it set for, you know, 8 or 10 hours, move them around again, let it set for 8 or 10 hours. And that way, you know, you're not actually using the compressor to blow the stuff out. You actually want it to dry. That way it leaves its coating in place. And man, these guys feel so good. I did go upstairs and kitchen sink and scrub these guys out. I know there's some videos online that guy finds a piece of stereo equipment on a beach or something and he takes it home and washes it out with a hose. Yeah. Well, we actually did a little bit of that along with our actual pieces, our knobs, which turned out quite nice considering they're 40+ years old, and everything else. So we're going to go ahead and see if we remember how to assemble this. Somewhere between here and the garage I lost one of these. It looks just like a thumbtack and it's black. I'm sure somebody's going to tell me as soon as they find it. While we were knee deep in this last acquisition, I decided to get out my original Technics SH-8025 equalizer and break it down and give it a clean up, just because I think it deserves it. With all this stuff just returning from the kitchen sink, we've gone ahead and scrubbed out our EQ with some just Home Depot cheapo stuff. You know, it's a lot cheaper than that other contact cleaner at $17 a can when that's like $4. So used a brush, scrubbed everything out, blew everything out as good as possible. Like I said, I've had this guy from new. I'm surprised on how filthy it really is. Now this was a bit surprising on how dirty it really was. I mean, look at that. That's just what dripped out of it. I mean, what I blew out of it. I've gone ahead and I've done this thing like 4 or 5 times now. Alright, we're back downstairs. We got everything all cleaned up and lined up. All ready to go. We actually accelerated the drying a little bit with our heat gun over there just to make sure, because we're not going to give this one 36 hours to sit around, and it needs to go back in service immediately. Back in service. Okay, putting on our last 2 felt feet. Just in case it sits on the receiver, the felt won't mar the wood like a rubber would. And not only that, but it only came with 2, and one was semi-attached, and none of them were on the points that actually made contact. So we got rid of them, and we're going to use some felt. They'll crush up a little bit when we're done. Let's take a look at this guy. And there it is. I think that'll function. Turned out pretty well. Take a look at the business end here. Got some fingerprints and such on it. And the paint still will dry over in the next few days anyway. But, not bad. I think it's time for a test run. So here we are. Everything should be plugged up and ready to go.
They can help lower cholesterol? I've been so focused on the sweet taste that tastes
Tape
that I
monitor.
completely forgot. Now I'm in love.
Power.
Learn more about making Honey Nut
EQ.
Cheerios as part of your heart healthy lifestyle by picking up a box at your local grocery
Yep.
store.
Okay, that should be the tape player. And which it is. Alright, everything seems to work. I guess it's time to give it a good listen and a shakedown, which, again, I can't do because you're copyright infringements. Alright, gotta pull it back a little bit already. I'm already pushing it really hard. I gotta say, our equalizer's working out really nice. Really nice. There's little secrets to find yet, you know, where it works just perfectly with these speakers here, but wow. Everything's clean, everything moves really clean. All my switches work, of course. You know, we've already hooked it up and gave that a test drive, and it seems to everything function properly. At the moment I'm running the turntable with an old Rush album here, and Nikes, this thing sounds really good. It has room for improvement, of course. My first thought is I want to turn this up, and I just want to keep turning it up. As you saw, I was already up about 3/4, which before the equalizer 5/8 was it, and that was kind of, like I said, it sounded kind of mushy. I'm finally able to pull the treble knob back and actually push the bass forward a little bit. The bass isn't so mushy, you know, you can kind of get a little bit of a boom instead of a bleh, you know, and that kind of sound. Pulling the treble back and be able to jack up a little of the high end to take advantage of these Emmett tweeters is just perfect. I mean, it works really well. And like any system, my first thing is I kick the crap out of the 1 kilohertz. I hate it. I don't know why. It's just every system I ever have. It's the same kind of gull wing setup. Sometimes this ends a little higher depending on how much bass it can actually handle. I don't tend to get really kind of push that end that much higher, but it's always, the middle's always dropped, and then I just kind of get this gull wing effect, trying to take away a little bit here and there. But I've really got a good sound going here. I'm going to continue on listening to this album. First, let me say the receiver is performing insanely good. I mean, I just ran through a whole Rush album at 5/8 or better in volume. Got a little warm, but you know, hey, it performed well. Again, back to reality here though, it is 16 watts per channel, in which case I wanted to push it and push it and push it. I just wanted to keep going. I had the sound that was, you know, pleasing. I just wanted to keep going with it because I wanted the subs to hit harder, and I wanted a little more bang on the cymbals. So, but at 16 watts per channel, you're only going to go so high. This is kind of like a boombox compared to a, you know, concert hall worth of equipment over there. So I have to keep it in perspective, and then part of that perspective is I've kind of condensed down my listening area when listening to these and adjusted my height and all that kind of audiophile stuff. Again, though, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, pat me on the back, because it's not me. I mean, this is what I was influenced by others when I was growing up. It seemed like everybody I knew had good stereo systems, whether it was in cars, whether it was at home. I mean, it was just something that happened, and I never really kind of like dawned on me that it would be something that influenced me for the rest of my life. Now with this equipment, and as I said with the star of the show, of course, is the equalizer, but it's kind of like the icing on the cake because of the fact that it's taken everything that I could hear from the receiver was there. There was just other stuff muddled on top. It has filtered all that out and then sent the actual clean signal that I want back to the amplifier, which sent it to the speakers, and done well. Of course, one of the things I absolutely hate is things that interfere with that sound, and that's one thing is either hiss from a tape player or pops, clicks, and scratches from an album, which you have to compensate for. I mean, what I always had to keep in mind, if you're running your frequencies real high, and a big pop from an album could actually make like a tweeter go snap, and not work again. So you always had to be considerate of that. But overall, I really do think I have a very good sound, something I could easily work with. I mean, if I just took this up to the garage or up to my bedroom, it would just be nothing. I mean, if I plug it in, I'd be happy with it right where likely it is now. One thing I did notice though is with this on different volume levels, you tend to want to squeeze out a little bit of this or push a little bit of that, depending on the volume level it's at. Now, in the past, because of having so much power, I guess, you kind of get it set and you kind of forget it for where you want. I figured that once I figured out where the max volume I really want to go to, I would have a set and forget. But at the moment right now, due to low, power levels, I'm pushing it, and then I want to, fool around with everything, and it's making things a little more complicated than it should be. Because honestly, I know a lot of people have with equalizers, they think, oh yeah, I'm always over there every 5 seconds fiddling with it. And the reality is you're not. Most people kind of just want to compensate what they're too bass treble knobs can't do, or add too much or subtract too much of something they want. So you just gotta find that medium. And I've found that actually I would leave my settings on my equalizer more than likely exactly where they are. And if I wanted a little more treble, if I wanted a little more bass, I would just actually use the two knobs down here. That way you're not actually adjusting up and down. And as I said, because everything's kind of new to me, and I've only been fooling with it for about an hour here, it is a little bit of tediness getting up and down, and figuring out which one's which. And as I said, I'm figuring it out. It's pretty much a gold wing is what I would call it, you know, that kind of figure. It's working real well. So overall, I would give it an A. I really would, and I'd give myself an A. Is it because of dumb luck? Is it because of exposure? Is it because of just I have a God-given ability? It could be none of those. It could be all of those. I'm not really positive. I just know that I was always the one that people went to in a car or a house and they said, go ahead and fix my stereo, which means go ahead and adjust it out to where it sounds the best. And I was always one that I could always try to get everything to sound as clear as possible, as loud as possible. I already heard that there was something new coming around and it was going to blow everybody's socks off. No more hissing from tapes and wrapped around spindles and all that good stuff. No more clicks and pops and skips and jumps from albums. Just clean, perfect sound. But until the next time,